Musically meditated.
Musically meditated. Musically meditated.
All right. Welcome to Musically Meditated Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Riley. Real quick, shameless self-plug. You can check out Musically Meditated on YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, and Spotify. Basically everywhere and anywhere you want to get your podcast listening fix. And then you could watch us, like I said, on YouTube. So please hit subscribe and share with everyone. Secondly, this episode is sponsored by Hobart Lumber Company and Ace Hardware. They're at 630 Main Street, Hobart. Their number is 219-945-3031, and you can reach them at www.hobartlumber.com. They've been around for 105 years, and they expanded from a lumber yard to three different locations, and you can get your lumber needs, building materials, hardware, and home improvement stuff from Ace, which is in Hobart, and cabinets and flooring. Now, this is episode with Matt Hebert, all up in the mix, and it's episode 66, but we're going to call it episode 666 to keep it really metal, naturally.
Oh, that's awesome.
But real quick, I've known Matt for quite some time, and my first story and my first experience has to do with Ritual Homicide. It was a death metal band that some of my friends started, and I was a bass player, and I thought I was going to get the plug or get the call, but this guy named Matt Hebert from a rival town got the call. I'm like, who is this guy? Who is he? And then I got to see you play, and I was like, all right, like I need to grease in my wheels. But that's how I remember you. And then I remember we brought you over to my house, and I don't know if you had like a fake ID or something, but we asked you to get us beer because we were underage. Like, I think we were probably like 19 or something, or 20 when I met you. I don't know.
Okay.
And you were able to get us alcohol. I don't know if you remember this.
I had a friend that was a few years older that was able to help facilitate that.
So I was like, hey, man, we drink Rolling Rock around here. I'm like, could you get us a case of Rolling Rock? You're like, sure.
Yeah.
So you come back, but you didn't bring a case of Rolling Rock. You bought a case of Ice House. It was a 30-pack.
Yeah.
And then all my buddies were a little bit rowdy. They're like, what the hell? Wasn't he supposed to get Rolling Rock? I'm like, hey, man, come on. Be nice.
Hey,
thanks for getting us that case.
Hey, it was, to me, it's quantity over quality.
I see. But, Matt, please introduce yourself, man. I mean, I'm going to let you do that.
Yeah, man. Okay. My name is Matt Hebert. I'm a musician from Northwest Indiana. I grew up in Merrillville. Was born in Wichita, Kansas. But,
really?
Yeah. My dad was in the Air Force, and that was early infancy. And then we moved out to Northwest Indiana. Most of my folks are from here. Most of my family's centralized around this area, so we ended up coming back. Yeah. So I'm a musician. I play a little bit of everything: guitar, bass, drums. I sing. Play a little bit of keys. I teach ukulele.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah, I picked up ukulele recently. I mess around on mandolin when I could get a hold of one. Just anything, if it makes noise, I could probably muster something out of it,
Yeah, I remember back in the day you were quite the madman on the bass. And I think we started to talk about Cannibal Corpse because we both really liked Alex Webster.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember you have a shaved head here today, but back in the day, dude, you had a long mane. It was like a lion mane almost.
Yeah, I had the long locks. Man.
Was that permed or what?
No, that was just my natural. That was just my natural curl, man. Yeah, it was. It was very starting to get a little frizzy because as a dude, you don't really get a whole lot of like
conditioner.
You didn't really get the right hair care technique, so I was using the shampoo and conditioner every single day.
Oh, every day.
Yeah, so I think I kind of frizzed my hair out a little bit. Okay. It would be bad. We'd be doing gigs, headbang a lot. So by the end of the gig, I'd have like the Claudio Sanchez type of hair going on.
Yeah, dude, I remember that. That was quite the mane there.
Very brutal.
But like I said, we crossed paths because of heavy music.
Oh yeah.
And was there a time that you can recall, like as a kid, or what led you in the direction of heavy? I know you're into all kinds of music, but what was it, the heavy metal
So
that caught your, like, why was it heavy metal that caught your attention?
the first thing that I could really remember is obviously growing up, MTV was huge, huge. My parents had to unprogram it from the TV because I would just sit and watch it, and then all the 80s cock rock videos would come on, and they're like, Matt doesn't need to be watching this stuff. So as a little kid, they took MTV off of our TV. They programmed it so the channel wasn't there. I mashed buttons and figured out how to get MTV back on.
Cool.
And so I'm watching it. They couldn't get me away from it. I remember seeing that old video of Sabbath doing Iron Man, you know, with that like
The weird
early green screen stuff with all the weird. I don't even know if it was green screen back then.
What was it? It was just projection.
It was it was like projections. It was real weird, but I remember that had a real subconscious effect on me. And then fast forward, I didn't really know anything about heavy metal because my parents weren't really into it. But then my neighbor Sean Stock, a few doors down, was like 8. This is like 91, and he was like, "Hey Matt, you know, I got this new Metallica tape. Like, you should come and check it out." It was the Black Album.
Yeah, the Black
Album.
Album.
When you're 8, you know, that was the first thing.
What year were you born?
83.
Me too. Okay, so we're exactly the same age.
Yeah, so I was like 8 years old. Black Album came out, and I went and checked it out. I was like, that's cool. You know, I didn't quite understand it, or I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, this is fine. And then I'd go home, and my mom, almost like that same day or within about that period of time, she's like, Matt, I don't know if you heard about this band called Metallica, but I'm pretty sure they worship Satan, and you should definitely not listen to them. I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know they worship the devil. It's like, they totally don't.
Right.
But, you know, like, parents were concerned and stuff, and, you know, I totally get it. So, you know, we'd go over there and sneak and listen to it, obviously.
It was
like,
dangerous, and then after they put that little parental advisory sticker themselves on it, then you, like, had to get it.
Oh, yeah.
As a kid.
Yeah, exactly. It was game on at that point. But, you know, so that was my first introduction to it. And then pretty much getting into heavy music ended up coming from, I really got into music through alternative. Like as an early teen, that's when I really started getting into it and having an interest in playing it. And then the bands I liked started getting heavier, and I wanted to get heavier stuff. You know, it was like Soundgarden was like the heaviest, Super Unknown was like the heaviest CD I had at that point. It's like, I need heavier. I need to get heavier, you know? And, and gradually kind of started to sneak it past my folks and stuff like that. You know, like I'd have a friend that let me borrow Far Beyond Driven, and
I remember when I first heard that album too. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. And then Metallica. And Metallica was a very, very major part because Rock 103.5 had mandatory Metallica. And Load was about to come out. Nobody knew anything about the new Metallica album, so they were just playing all this old stuff. They were playing Garage Days. They were playing stuff off Kill 'Em All, Red Lightning, Master. And I was like, whoa, this is just mind-blowing.
Oh, yeah.
This is just, I loved it. And then ended up going to Blockbuster Video, and they had the music videos and stuff where you could, like, you know, get the VHS tapes. They had Cliff 'Em All.
Oh, man.
And I rented that. Got it with my own money because I had to sneak it past my folks. And I watched that, and I saw Cliff Burton do his thing. I was like, good Lord, I gotta do this.
Yeah,
it's like I wanted to be in a band forever, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. And just seeing him play bass like that, it was like, okay, I got to pick up a bass.
Yeah, because he was like a lead almost on the bass. Like he played it like nobody else, man. That's our story's similar, you know. MTV, you know, I remember Headbangers Ball a lot. And then the Metallica Black Album was huge. But I do remember one. I remember that video. I mean, we were super young. I think that came out in like 88, 89.
Oh, yeah.
But I do remember that video, and it had a huge impact on me because of the backstory behind it, remember? And they had like that dude that got blown up in war like on there, and they were putting those movie clips. I remember it just like kind of freaked me out as a kid. And then
very disturbing video.
It's very disturbing. Kids probably shouldn't be watching that. But I had a lot of different babysitters. My parents were younger, and shout out to Kirk Jackson because he was the guy that really got me into heavy metal. Like he's like an uncle basically to me, but he would babysit, so he would get pizza and we'd watch like Headbangers Ball and stuff. And a shout out to my uncle Don because he was into heavy metal and he's a drummer too, but he was a little bit more into Guns N' Roses. You know, like he didn't get into anything speed or thrash, but Kirk was the guy kind of pushing that envelope a little bit. But I remember the day he got the Black Album, you know, and then I think What was the first single? I know Sad. I just remember the Sad But True single and like that video having a huge impact.
I mean, there was
Inner Sandman.
Sandman was probably like the first one. It's like Sandman, Sad But True, Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam.
Yeah, every song was a single on that
and
album,
Nothing Else Matters. I think those were all the singles off of that.
Yeah.
But then, you know, another thing that got me into bass was that bass break in Holier Than Thou. Do 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 do. I borrowed the tape from my buddy and I would just listen to that bit over and over again. I was like, dude, that's so cool. Like that little bass break.
Hell yeah.
But
and then the Cliff 'Em All tape. I remember like I kind of got out of heavy metal, you know, like especially like in middle school, and then got back into it early high school because everyone was listening to Metallica, and I knew the earlier stuff, but you know, when you're younger, you can't absorb so much. And playing football, they were always listening to like Motor Breath and Whiplash and the Four Horsemen, like before we'd go out and practice, like in the locker room.
Yeah,
just had a huge influence on me. And then like some older guys that were hanging around, like, no, you got to check this out, check that out. And then I remember I bought the Cliff 'Em All VHS tape like freshman year.
Yeah.
And that had an impact. I'm like, I want to play bass.
Yep.
I want to be Cliff.
Wow.
I swear to
See,
God. Yeah.
nice.
It's crazy.
Oh, wow. We
yeah.
started playing for the same reasons.
Same reasons.
That's freaking awesome.
When it comes to Metallica, if you had to pick your favorite album by them, which one is it and why?
It's going to have to be Ride the Lightning.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because I really like that weird reverby sort of production quality on it.
It's a different sound.
It's a really different sound. It's just unique. I don't know. It was just really good songwriting. It rips. It's a lot of fun. I really like how raw Kill 'Em All is, but it's kind of got a little bit more gravitas to it. You know?
It does.
You know, they kind of grew a little bit, and I don't know. That was just my overall favorite one. I mean, yeah, Master's great, but everybody
picks it.
Yeah, everybody picks it. And
I do. I'm that guy. I love Master. Man.
Yeah, Master's
Puppets.
great, and you know, like I like a lot of stuff in Justice, but I just can't get past the production.
It's awful.
Yeah, and especially his bass player. You know?
I know
how they did Newstead was just
they did him dirty.
They did him dirty.
They do have YouTube. There's a YouTube channel or whatever, but they mix the bass all the way up in the mix. So
Justice for Jason, they ended up getting the stems from Guitar Hero.
Oh,
yeah, because in the Guitar Hero games, in order to be on there, because they'd have the isolated tracks for everybody, so they had to go back to the masters and find those old ISOs. So yeah, somebody found them and just knocked them up in the mix, and it sounds great. It's like, man, Newstead killed it too, man. That guy doesn't get half the love that he deserves.
Yeah, he should.
He really deserved a lot more praise than he got.
Yeah, man. I mean, to fill Cliff Burton's shoes is a huge deal. Come on. And then, you know, he was super young and they hazed him and shit and had a fun time. But yeah, I mean, to haze you enough to just turn your mix all the way down, that's shiesty.
Man,
throwing shade on Jason. No wonder he left, but he left at a good time. But
yeah, he stuck it out long enough. He got paid.
Yeah, he's still getting paid too.
He's good. He's gonna be fine.
But you know, so Metallica's always like the flavor saver, so to speak, you know, when it comes, and nothing against them. I love them. They're a part of our youth. But then obviously you wanted to experiment with a little bit heavier sound. So where'd you go after Metallica, digging deep into your past? Here?
So around that time is when I started up in Laceration, which was the first band that I was in. So I had been playing for a couple of years, pretty much self-taught for the first year or so. And then I started taking private lessons from this guy named Mike Smith. At Rubino's Music in Merrillville.
I remember Rubino's. That's where I got my first lessons too.
Mike was sick. He was more of a guitar teacher, so he taught me how to play bass to accompany a guitar. So I was kind of learning them both at the same time. And I got good enough to be in a band, and I joined up with these dudes, Jake Snover, Joe Gorski, and Scott Brownwell at the time. Later to be Paul Navarro instead of Brownwell. And we were in a band called Laceration.
I remember that.
I was super into Metallica, getting into it, and they were like, okay, yeah, Metallica's cool, but here's Slayer, here's Carcass, here's Morbid Angel, here's Cannibal Corpse. And I had a friend that was really into the death metal stuff earlier on, back a few years before that. I didn't get it at that point. I was like, all right, my buddy Pete Christoph, rest in power. He's no longer with us, but he was starting to kind of try to get me into that heavier stuff. But I like Metallica. I liked singing. I didn't like the growling stuff. I heard Napalm Death for the first time, and I was just like, ew.
What is this?
Ew, gross. What is that?
They're a hard pill to swallow, too. Like,
yeah, man, that wasn't the right band to show me first. But
no.
then, Cannibal Corpse, and just watching that live DVD of them playing, like the real early one. Even before Live Cannibalism, I think they had like a VHS or something before that, and just Rob Barrett and Alex Webster just rip it up. I was like, whoa,
what
dude.
is this?
Like, this is even crazier than So that was the kind of stuff that really started getting me into like heavier stuff and like traditional. I guess you'd call it traditional
death metal.
Yeah, because and then Suffocation Gotta rep Suffo.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Pierced from Within.
Yeah, buddy.
Despise the Sun. Effigy of the Forgotten.
So
yeah.
good.
I know all about Suffo, man.
Yeah, so
love them.
Jamming with those Laceration dudes, they definitely got me into a lot of that stuff and got me to appreciate it.
Yeah, I remember with the death metal being really young, a lot of it had to do with that Ace Ventura Pet Detective. Because remember, Jim Carrey goes looking for whoever in the first one, and he was a huge Cannibal Corpse fan.
Yeah.
So he went to a Cannibal Corpse concert. And then, as time went on, you have those buddies that are influential, like, hey, check this out, check that out. And it was like Zach Gasia, and then he knew Bootleg Bill. Do you remember Bootleg Bill?
That sounds really familiar, but...
Well, that's what his name was, Bootleg Bill, and he had his own label.
Yeah, that's right.
It was Unmatched Brutality.
Wasn't Decrypt signed to that?
Yeah, Decrypt was signed to it.
In the early days, yeah.
So, like, these were the days before, like, the internet was just there, like late 90s, early 2000s. So Zach found out that the guy, was it Unmatched Brutality Records? I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But he found out Bootleg Bill, and he lived here in Hobart. So we just went over there, like, hey, we want to buy some CDs. Like, yeah, you guys come over. And he just had, like, all kinds of death metal stuff, but these were the days of like VHS.
Mm-hmm.
So he had all these VHS bootleg shows, man, and we would buy these and just watch them, and we were just totally blown away.
I think a few of those made their rounds over to me, copies of copies.
Oh, I'm
of
sure.
Copies. Yeah,
but
yeah,
bootleg
sure.
VHS is the way to go.
Yeah, man, that was the old school tape trading.
It was the best. But with Cannibal Corpse, especially, I guess going back to bass guitar, Alex Webster had a huge influence on me. Like it got to a point where there was just so much technicality, and speed. I'm sure I could have if I stuck to it, like practicing, but I couldn't do it. And I remember watching you for the first time, like, oh, he could do it. So is there a point like where you kept practicing, or is it natural too, or you just kept practicing?
Just kept practicing. It's all hard work. I had a little bit of a leg up because, like, genetically I have, musicians in the family. Like my grandfather was awesome piano player. He'd been playing since he was 5. So music was always around, but it was just hard work and dedication. In high school, actually I started in middle school. So I was kind of focusing on that a little bit more than my studies. I would just come home and just woodshed because I wanted to be great. I wanted to be as good as Cliff, or I wanted to be better than all the people that I knew at school that said that I wasn't going to be any good at it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So, show them up.
Yeah, man, I had to show them up, and I'm not like a super competitive person, but when somebody tells me I can't do something, then I have to prove them wrong.
Gotta prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Back to Cannibal Corpse. What album really got your attention? What's your favorite album by Corpse?
Well, that's tough. What really got me into them was The Bleeding.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yeah, The Bleeding totally got me into them. That was, at that point in their discography, that was kind of like the most accessible, quote unquote, that you could get into. And then, for
especially oral sex with broken glass.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Yeah, exactly, man. It's good family material.
Yeah.
And then Bloodthirst is another favorite of mine because that one just, it's like Simmons had said, it's like the perfect death metal party record because it just grooves.
It did. That came out like 99, 2000.
Yeah,
right? It was around that era.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hell yeah. But The Bleeding, like you said, there was just something about that moment and that time. I think it was like 94, mid 90s, and Barnes was at his best. And I don't know, man, that's just a great album. Like, that's definitely death metal starter 101.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Like if you want to get into it or try, like here's the bleeding. Take some time and let me know what you get out of it. Like Strip, Raped, and Strangled, another great family classic.
Yeah, of course. That's a really catchy song. It's really really messed up, but
that riff, the opening of that riff.
Come on,
it's a game over. It's a game changer, and everyone in Hobart had that sticker on the back of their car or their little truck.
Oh, it's so cringy, but hey, it's a different time. But man, I just love that stuff.
Other death metal awesome albums are like some of your favorite. I'll just pull some out here. What about Cryptopsy? They had a huge influence on me. How about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, you did the episode on None So Vile, and man, it's just. That one's great, and I even like Whisper Supremacy and
Stuff
then
with DeSalvo, yeah,
DeSalvo. Gotta show some love to DeSalvo.
No. The way you see it is the way it is.
It's the way. Yeah, I mean, very very distinct vocalist. I had always wished that there could be like some nice middle ground between DeSalvo and Lord Worm, because, I mean, just Lord Worm, his presence, his stage presence, and just in those crazy lyrics, like that was just the shit.
It was the shit.
But then DeSalvo had just a real powerhouse
hardcore. They were trying to blend hardcore with extreme death metal, and I'll tip my hat to that. It's cool to mix the genres. Mm-hmm. It just didn't really work out that well.
Well, it didn't work out that well when we you might have been, you remember Riley's Rock House, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you end up going to that Cryptopsy show where it was Cryptopsy, Poison the Well, Origin?
Yeah, I was there.
And it was like and then what was the other band? Poison the Well and Candiria.
It was Candiria. Yeah, I loved Candiria.
So it was like
Carly Coma, what's up, dude?
Yeah,
I love Carly
Coma. So they were like death metal and hardcore, we're gonna bring it together, right? So they would do I think it was like Origin first, and then Candiria, and then Cryptopsy, and then Poison the Well. So it's like during the death metal bands, all the hardcore kids would go hang outside, and then when all the hardcore bands, most of the death metal kids would hang outside. So it didn't
blend.
At least we stayed. Everybody was like in the same vicinity while the show was going on. I don't think any fights happened.
No, I don't remember any of that. I remember there was a lot of good shows at Riley's Rock House. Like, were you at that Cephalic Carnage show? Remember, they were huge for us. It was like Cephalic Carnage and Goat Whore, and at any rate.
I don't think I was at that particular one, but I've seen Cephalic a handful of times.
Yeah, I think Montez filmed, I forget the drummer's name. Was it Jerry or something? But remember, Montez filmed him. He went on stage, and it's like one of those awesome death metal drummer videos, and Montez had it. But at any rate, not to get too far off course here, but I had a guest last week. He's a younger dude. His name's Julian, and he was talking about the new punk rock scene in the region in South Chicago. And I was trying to relate, but I never really, I don't know about you. I mean, obviously we grew up at the same time, same age, around the same scene, but I wouldn't really call it a scene. Did we really have a scene back then? Like the death metal scene?
It wasn't really,
Do you know what I'm
really
saying?
A scene per se, because it was maybe more like each town had one.
And then we kind of came together
Sort
just
of.
to make one band and get people together. But it wasn't even the Decrypt days.
No.
It was a scene, but nobody called it that.
No, it wasn't
Right?
a scene either, because
What was it?
well, in Merrillville, I mean, you had us, Laceration. We were kind of like a death thrash type of thing, if you will. And then Cherville had Decrypt, which was pretty much spazzy grindcore, like death grind, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I know Hobart had some.
We
but
were just more metal.
Everybody was so. Even though this area is a lot, it gets a lot smaller the older you get. But when you're young, town to town, it just seems like such a vast distance,
right?
Especially back then.
Right. I know Hobart, the bands I was in, we were. Definitely, it was pimpcore and new metal influence with Pantera and stuff.
Yeah, so that pimpcore thing that had a big scene.
That had a scene. Yeah, I remember all the shows at the Laser Zone.
Yeah, and Fat Aggression and Sick Frown and Taproot, even though they were from Michigan, but it was a big deal when they came out.
Yeah, they were huge.
But yeah, so that was more of a scene. What we were doing with the really heavy stuff was kind of a little bit more of a.
What would you call it?
It was not. I mean, it is an acquired taste.
Very
but it was
acquired.
There weren't really a whole lot of people doing it, especially late '90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, we were kind of the end of the pimpcore thing.
yeah, while the pimpcore thing was happening, like, you know, Korn and Limp Bizkit were huge. A bunch of dudes like us were going back 5 years, even 10 years, finding all these old death metal records. And like, wow, this is really cool. Like, and you didn't know about it at the time because we were like, I was like 11 when The Bleeding came out. You know, it's like,
nobody had that.
What is
shit.
this? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What is this?
Nobody had that. But yeah, that's I was just thinking about that with the scene thing. Another band here. This isn't death metal, but maybe it's a touch. But At the Gate, Slaughter the Soul.
Oh yeah. I'm a big fan of anything Swedish and anything melodic. Yeah. Well, just about. But yeah, At the Gates was a little bit more evil sounding than say like In Flames and stuff, which In Flames and Soilwork, which I enjoy both of those bands as well.
Their earlier stuff I like a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. Well, especially with In Flames. Soilwork is pretty consistently like good or great. But yeah, At the Gates, like that is just mean.
Slaughter the Soul.
So mean.
It's a great, like you said, it's melodic. Is it Scandinavian death?
Yeah.
We could call it that. Like if there wasn't a Slaughter the Soul, there'd be no Lamb of God. Would you agree? Like anything in that direction? Like
most metalcore, like especially when that big metalcore boom in the mid 2000s happened, everybody was ripping off At the Gates. Because they learned how to do that minor key thing, you know, that specific Iron Maiden chord progression. The minor 1 to the flat 6 to the flat 7. Da 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 da. And then add that minor key thing over it, but then add the you know, the galloping stuff, and you know that ended up becoming the sound. And At the Gates was doing it, and then like 10 years after they made the CD, then a bunch of metalcore kids are ripping it off.
It got blown up, because that's how it got into my orbit. You know, like I don't remember it back when it came out, but when the metalcore thing, if that's what you want to say, like when that blew up, it got into my orbit. I was like, okay, and then really went back like, oh, these dudes are the pioneers for sure. Yeah. What was the vocalist name? Lindbergh? Thomas Lindbergh or something like that?
Yeah.
Well, I was reading an article and I thought it was neat. He said that all the lyrical content, like the inspiration behind all of his lyrical content, was from the movie Menace to Society. Isn't that some weird shit?
What?
Yeah, he's like,
what?
He watched it over and over for like a day. He thought it was a great movie, which it is. But that's where, I mean, I don't want to say like this song's about this scene in the movie, but
I'm gonna have to rewatch that.
Yeah, that was a great movie. Yeah. O-Dog, remember O-Dog?
Yeah, man. Wow, okay. That's good stuff.
Yeah, some random drop, some random stuff.
I like it.
But going back to Iron Maiden, you know.
Oh yeah.
What's some of your favorite albums by them, and how much of an influence did they have on your style?
Well, the one that really got me going on them was Live After Death, because it had that cool, the blue cover with Eddie coming out of the grave and stuff. Yeah. So obviously did the classic old school move of getting it because of the album artwork. And I really liked it because it wasn't as polished as their studio albums. And I wasn't really into the high falsetto vocals yet. Yeah. I didn't really.
I remember you used to be able to hit some of those. Back in the day.
I used to. Yeah, back when I was young. Not so much anymore, man. I lost that range.
You'd have a couple cocktails, and all of a sudden, your inner Iron Maiden would come out.
Yeah, exactly.
You could do it. I remember.
I know. Yeah, I got to get it back. But yeah, I was just super. I wasn't really into that stuff, but then I heard that, and it all started to make sense. I was like, oh yeah, these guys roll. And Steve Harris on bass, obviously.
Dude.
I love the twin guitar thing, you know.
They were always jamming on Fenders too, weren't they? All of them, like Fender dudes.
No, so I think okay, I'm gonna kick myself for not remembering.
I'm questioning your musical knowledge.
So Dave Murray, he played a Strat, but then the other guitar player, who for some reason I could never remember his name, Smith.
Okay.
Smith.
That's all right.
He'd play like Gibsons and stuff like that. But
bass was a Fender though, wasn't it?
Yeah, P bass.
P bass.
Steve Harris was playing.
Steve Harris, dude. God, he's a great bass player. I know.
This move all day, man. But yeah, but then when I was learning bass, it was that stuff. Sabbath, like Geezer Butler,
all day.
And then the first Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, that's what I was learning.
Yeah, so by that point, like learning all those, and then learning as much of the Metallica stuff as could make sense, because once you started getting into like Injustice, some of those transitions and riffs were like, what? What is this, dude? Right. Yeah, some of that stuff was getting a little weird. So I kind of abandoned the learn every single Metallica song plan that I had initially.
Like, I'm done with this.
But I got a decent amount of it done. You know.
How about Slayer though?
Oh, Slayer. Oh man. Slayer, favorite album from Slayer.
Yeah.
South of Heaven.
Okay.
I like it.
I like all their shit. It's so hard to pick a favorite, but yeah, South of Heaven's a good one to.
Yeah. For my sensibilities, I like it. It's like nice middle of the road. It's got just good. The production stepped up a little bit from their previous albums, and then
it's not so MIDI.
Yeah, and
it didn't.
Yeah, exactly. Because those first couple had a ton of reverb. And so it was like a weird like Merciful Fate cover thing, which I like. I like Merciful Fate.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I mean, Rain and Blood is obviously a classic, but it is what it is. That's a standalone thing.
Divine Intervention is one of my favorite too.
Yeah, Divine Intervention is really cool too.
Because like talking about production, that's when they had some more meat and potatoes behind them. It was thunk, it was a little bit thicker.
Yeah,
the drums too, Lombardo's drums, and there's just something really angry about that album. Like out of all their shit, like I mean, it's Slayer, they're angry, but there was like a darkness to that one. Like I really could like identify with, like I don't know, man.
Well, that was the first one with Paul Bostaph.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, Paul Bostaph came in on that one. So I think Seasons was the last one with Lombardo.
Oh, really? Yeah. Lombardo's not on?
No, he's not.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
No, you're welcome, man.
Right.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have a lot of trivial music knowledge.
No, that's good. And Meshuggah, Destroy, Erase, Improve.
Oh, yeah, man. Well,
one of your favorites?
Yeah, well, sort of going back to how I was talking about how all the metalcore kids were jocking at the gates real hard. I mean, the Jensine, I mean, they just worship Meshuggah, which is crazy to me because they came out with that particular album like 96.
Is that the one with the spikes? Like on the CD, it was like a ball with the spikes on it?
That's Chaosphere.
Okay.
So this is the album before that.
Okay.
It's sort of like 3 skeletons.
All right, I remember now.
Yeah.
I like that one and the one with the spikes.
Yeah. Those are the two best ones. And then after that, when they went to the like 8 strings and they did nothing and stuff, I kind of lost interest because it just wasn't doing it for me. The thing that they really stopped doing that I enjoyed was that weird Alan Holdsworth style of like
time
melodicism.
Signatures? Oh, melodicism.
Yeah,
right.
because they were still kind of melodic, but it was weird. And obviously what they did, they changed the game for rhythm, especially
it's a head scratcher.
For like, for your typical metalheads.
All you simple-minded.
Yeah, exactly. Well, typical metalheads didn't know what polyrhythms were at that point in time. It's just, let's play really fast. And, but at that point, they really switched up the game of groove and rhythm. But they had this weird, like, jazzy, like, odd melodicism to it. And that was the other part of it that I really liked. And they just went down the rabbit hole of the rhythmic thing where there's like, it's devoid of melody now, which is, I guess it's cool, but it's not for me. I got to have
more tonal. Like you like more rhythm, or not rhythm, but more melody and less tonal approach, right?
Well, they're like I'd say that their approach is atonal.
Atonal. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like without tone.
Without tone.
Yeah, or without any particular like type of melody. It's just ding 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 ding
yeah, just all over.
I don't know. After a while, I kind of lost interest, but everybody jocks those guys, and with good reason. But it's like people didn't start worshiping Meshuggah until they had already like stopped putting out some of their best work, in my opinion. And I still love that band, obviously. But
yeah, with the 8-string, I remember when they did that, and I thought that was pretty cool. And out of all the bands in the world, that guitar tone influenced one of my favorite bands. I always got to drop them, but Deftones, like Steph.
Oh yeah,
Steph went to the, he had the 7 strings, but then he went to the 8-string baritone. I think with like Diamond Eyes. Now he's not playing Meshuggah type shit, but there's something to be said with Steph tones.
Absolutely, because the first time I heard an 8-string on a song, and I liked it, was Diamond Eyes.
Yep.
Dun, 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 dun. I was like, oh yeah, now I get
You've seen The Butcher. Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, that one. And
yeah, he did a great job.
Sick.
Now let's move on to, it's a broad question, but some of your favorite guitarists. If I mean, you got another hour?
Yeah, exactly. I could talk your ear off about guitarists. I mean,
How about for metal? You know, some of your favorite metal guitarists.
Dave Davidson from Revocation.
Okay.
Is a monster.
Okay.
Like that dude could play anything, and he's singing and playing. Like, yeah, for like new guys that play death metal, I mean, I think that guy's like top tier.
Right on.
He's the first dude that jumps out of my head because every time anytime I listen to Revocation or the time I saw him live, it was just blown away, just completely floored with the guy's versatility.
Technicality.
And just all around, it's great, and he just writes good parts. And
do you have to in order to really like the guitarist? Does he have to be technical?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, outside of the realm of metal, I love John Frusciante.
Okay.
And he's not like a technical guitarist, but it's just the groove, the time, the feel, the melodies, the tone. Like I might have said tone before, but yeah, no, it's just all of those different factors really come into play with guitarists, and everyone's different,
right. Anybody else? Newer guys?
Oh, newer guys, man. I could go through a whole laundry list right now, but nobody's really coming to mind. Right. Nobody's like jumping at me.
How about older guys?
Oh, well, Dimebag. I mean, nobody played like that dude.
And like you said, tone. All about tone with Dime, ain't it?
Yeah.
Okay, man. How about this? Your favorite Pantera album based on Dimebag's tone. What's your favorite tone?
Based on tone, it's probably gonna have to be Far Beyond.
Okay.
Far Beyond Driven, just because.
His tone's so good.
Yeah, they got it together. But the main thing about it is that Rex isn't getting the love that he deserves, because that's why that band sounds so heavy.
Yeah.
Because when you actually listen to those isolated bass tracks,
he's amazing.
It's thick and it's dirty and it's mean. Yeah. So they really balance each other out on the spectrum. Like just Dime's guitar by itself might sound kind of brittle and kind of harsh.
He was always really good at the mids.
Yeah, he had just that right thing, because he would like scoop out his mids, but then he had Geisha was telling me about it. He had this like EQ unit that he would just find just the right frequency in the mids to kind of boost up.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things. So he kind of had the scoop sound, but he kind of had that right bit in the mids to make it really punch through.
It was meaty and sharp. Is that a good way to describe his tone?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. I could say that, but it definitely like he was holding out a lot of the high end and some of the mids, and then Rex was holding down the lows, obviously, and then that other part of the mid. So they kind of like, you create that marriage between the guitar and the bass to really make them stick together, as opposed to just the bass supporting the guitar, so to speak.
Yeah, like being the backbone.
Yeah, they really blended together, and it was just, Rex was so good that he didn't even know he was there half the time.
I know. I was just watching a thing on Rex. It was a very recent interview, and he was talking about like Dime would take a break and he'd be like, all right, you write something now. Like Rex wrote a lot of the leads. Like I don't remember what song in particular. Really? But yeah, Rex is like, he would just maybe get a writer's block or something. And he's like, I started on guitar kind of deal. And then he went to bass. So he's like, I think it was like for the song Cowboys from Hell, like there was certain lead parts he would show Dime, and then Dime would jump in. But yeah, Rex he's behind the trigger a lot, man, and he's forgotten.
Definitely in riffs. That particular section. So Rex did the guitar overdub in that. So basically when they're playing, Dime's doing the solo, and Rex is just holding it down on the bass. So Rex had a guitar overdub part, that dun, dun, dun,
that's what I'm talking. Yeah,
like a little chromatic thing. So that was Rex, and then a lot of the riffs, especially when they got to like reinventing the steel, Rex had a lot of riffs on there.
Yeah. That album had a lot of that southern flow to it. Like that southern soul a little bit.
Not mad at it. That CD.
No, we were talking about that off mic. It doesn't
get the love that it deserves. It was a little different for them, but it grooves. It's fun record,
and a little bit, like you said, happy. And that's a hard thing to say, but it had like a more of a little happy jingle behind it.
Yeah, it was like real positive, which is weird considering the state of affairs in that band at the time.
Yeah. But all right, and any old school guitarists too, real quick, just off the top of your head. Then we're gonna move on to bass. I think we kind of covered some basses, but
no? I don't know. We could just move on.
We'll just move on. Yeah. All right. Bass wise though, we already mentioned Cliff Burton. Huge influence.
Yeah, Cliff Burton,
Who
Alex
else?
Webster, Steve Harris.
About Les Claypool, you Les Claypool
Oh,
guy?
of course, yeah.
Right. But metal-wise, any other metal bass players?
Nobody I could really think of to name drop at the moment.
Okay.
You know.
All right. Well, we're focusing on metal a lot here, but you have been in many bands, so
Yes.
from different genres, and that's what I like to do with this show is talk about all genres as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's probably 3 in particular that I revisit the most, like punk, metal, and hip hop. But let's go through some of your bands, man, and let's do this.
Go.
I know you have a list, but let's go into some of them and talk about them. And
Okay, so we spent a little bit of time talking about Laceration.
okay,
so we can skip through that. You had mentioned Ritual Homicide at the top of the show, which is with mutual friends of ours.
Beneath the Floorboards, I remember that song. I remember the song title name.
So to be honest, I haven't heard that particular record in years, and I just found out that Joe has a copy of it.
I've
been
been
trying
to
search. Still. I've been trying to search for that everywhere. So that's pretty awesome.
I'll give it to you. I gotta find it. I know it's somewhere.
Yeah, right. That's
stored,
so awesome.
but I will get you a copy. That was definitely like Cannibal Corpse influenced death metal, right?
Oh yeah.
Because Simmons wrote a lot of that, or did you guys collaborate? It was just a small little EP.
It was. I'd say that it was like Simmons and Geisha. So I think Simmons wrote the lion's share of the material, and then Geisha had a few riffs on there, and then me and our drummer from Laceration, Jake Snover, we were the rhythm section in that. So they had pretty much had the material, and we just jumped in on it. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so that was cool. After Ritual Homicide and Laceration, Laceration ended up kind of going into a different direction. I was starting to get more into the melodic stuff, and then they were kind of getting a little bit more into like real tech, like I don't know, like super technical stuff. Like what's that band with the Jars and Becks? Spastic Inc.
Oh, okay.
And Candira and stuff, and like
Dillinger Escape playing like math chord type.
But the thing that was funny is that I was really into Dillinger at the time. I was like, hey man, like you guys should check out Dillinger because this is kind of like the stuff you guys are going for. They're like, no, we don't really like them as much. It's like, what? So we were kind of like we were just at odds. We were kind of just going in different directions at that point. So I ended up getting together with a few buddies of mine, Aaron Hall and Ryan Mack, and moving down to their apartment out in Lafayette. They had this little project that they were working on that was called Red Lust. It was like an industrial type of thing.
Cool.
So, they had the computer with Cakewalk on it at the time. So I was like, oh my God, we could actually record our own music over here. Like, this is amazing. So I went and moved in with them. I kind of ended up spending a little bit more time on the computer than them, and the whole thing kind of ended up fizzling out and not going anywhere. But I had a few little recording projects that I did, and I kind of started to get the hang of doing the actually doing my own recordings. So I was like, oh, okay, you could start to get into production that way. So got back home, still kind of messing around with production. My best friend, well, one of my best friends, I can't pick a favorite, but Jason O'Hearn, he was telling me like, man, you got to get a band together. And it's like, you got to just get dudes that are just down, you don't have to worry about like getting the absolute best or whatever, like get the best players. You just want to get people that are like dedicated and that their heart's in it. And it's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, enter Donnie Berg, rest in power, old friend of mine. He was a couple years younger than me. And he was in a band called Jack in the Box, and they actually
I remember that band.
Yeah, so they played with Laceration at one of our very last shows with me on vocals, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey man, dude, I'm Donnie. I love your band. Yada da. I work at Hot Topic at the mall. You gotta come and hang out. Like we gotta like jam, dude. We gotta totally jam." He's like, he just come in like just a burst of energy. He's like, "Dude, we gotta jam. Yada da da da." It's like, okay. So some time went by. He finally hit me up. We got together and over at our buddy Lee Kidd's house, and I brought my guitar. He had his guitar over there. We played it, and I started showing him some of the riffs that I had going, and he was just coming up with just like the best compliments to the stuff. He was like jumping right into it. It was like, wow, this guy's good. Like we like had this instant musical connection, and then later on that night, we were still hanging out after we got done playing, and I saw him air drumming to some Slipknot, and I was like, whoa, this dude can play drums too.
Oh,
like,
wow.
It's like, whoa. And, he would never admit to being a drummer, but he ended up being a drummer in our band, the Armor Agenda, that we ended up forming around that. So we had a handful of people in there. We had we had a few people that were in and out of that group, but then ended up kind of settling. It's like, Donnie, you got to play drums, because our buddy Mike Furnett ended up learning. So Donnie and I did a demo out in Muncie with my cousin Joe Hebert, or Hebert, if you will, which is, he goes by Hebert. Some of my family goes by Hebert. It's kind of confusing. Okay. But not to get too far off.
French.
Yeah, it is
French?
It is a French last name. So it's spelled Hebert, H at the beginning and the T at the end are silent. So Eber, Hebert, oui, oui. So anyway, my cousin Joe was going to school in Muncie, and we went to record a demo with him, and, kind of got the point across, but it wasn't great. We did it in the course of a weekend, But our buddy Mike Furnett, who was in Jack in the Box with Donnie, heard it and just learned it by ear. And it's like, okay, well, he's obviously gonna be the other guitar player, because Donnie's the best drummer out of all the people in that group, and begrudgingly he took the throne. But he did a great job. So we did 2 EPs with that, and it went really well. Did some touring in the MySpace days.
Oh, the MySpace days.
Yeah, man. We Eddie Payton was on vocals, and Mike Finney was on bass. Those two were a little bit more business minded, so they knew how to do the MySpace thing. They knew how to book. We ended up getting a van, no, it was a bus, no less. Ford Econoline 21-seater. So we had the captain's chair, and then we reversed the bus seats behind the captain's chair, tore out a few rows to have like a couch, and then have like a little table, then had the reverse chairs, and then took out all the seats in the back for all our gear.
Awesome.
And we cruised around the country.
Did you tour the entire country, or was it like in a certain area?
Most of it, like we ended up making it out to the East Coast, down south. We had a tour called Down South All Up in Your Mouth tour, 2007. We didn't get much further west than like Omaha.
Okay.
But so we did mostly like East Coast and down south and up north and like Michigan and Wisconsin.
It's a rough lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty rough. We have a few stories that I don't even know if I'm going to have time to get into on this particular one. But let's just say we were all very stinky. The heat didn't work, and the AC didn't work.
Ooh.
So the summer tours were really hot and
stinky dudes.
Yeah, and then the winter
Stinky
tours.
dudes.
Yeah, so there was a winter tour where we got hit with this big snowstorm. So I ended up pretty much driving the bus all the way from Omaha back to Northwest Indiana, just because like every show that we had booked along the way was getting canceled. It's like, okay, well, we're gonna have to just keep going. And they get on Wi-Fi network at a stop. We were like, okay, yeah, well, this place ended up canceling too. So I pretty much did that whole drive. Like there would be cars on the side of the road in the ditch, like every mile. So it was crazy, but we made it. But
those MySpace days were great for music and art, ain't it? To
it
promote.
really was.
I really miss them. Like, because Facebook, your shit gets lost. Instagram's good, but it's like instant gratification.
Yeah.
And you can only share one link in the bio. But you know what I'm saying? Like those MySpace days were great because it was basically your own website.
It was.
And then you could play like 4 songs. Remember? It was great.
Yeah, it was great. But then good things like that never last because it got oversaturated.
It did.
And there was no way to filter out all the crap.
Yeah, there was a lot of spam and weird shit.
Yeah, there were a lot
crappy music. I mean,
exactly.
As far as music goes, anyone could open a page. Remember?
Exactly, which is good and bad.
Yeah, yeah. Spotify is kind of going that direction. I love Spotify for listening to music, but anyone could upload something and say it's music. And
yeah. Well, thankfully they got like they curate playlists pretty well and stuff based around what you already listened to and stuff. But yeah. So Armor Agenda ended up running its course. Eddie and Finney ended up deciding to part ways, and it was never the same. We never found another singer or bass player.
Was that like melodic death metal?
That was sort of like we had the melodic death metal thing going on, but we were kind of more like
I remember it. It's been a while.
Little metalcore in there too, but melodic death metal stuff was in there too.
Okay,
but yeah. That was pretty much the gist of that band, but it was cool. We did 2 EPs. We did A Call to Arms and Death of the Hero. Those are both on YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah, I ended up uploading them when Donnie passed.
Okay.
So, just out of remembrance, because we did our own release back then. So we just had a bunch of CDs. So it was like, okay, this isn't on
Anywhere to be. Yeah.
anywhere. So it's like, I'm just going to upload it to
That's
YouTube,
cool.
as opposed to like getting like a Spotify account for a band that isn't active anymore,
Yeah. Awesome. Check it out.
So yeah, we did that. So moving on from the metal, we did Mega Bangers with it was me, Jim Kelly, Brad Vanderzee, and Zach Chetnik, who that was the original lineup for Handsome Prick.
Right.
Jim's not with them anymore, but we did. It started off as like a rockabilly psychobilly thing, and then once we got Brad and Zach in there, it kind of kept getting faster. And it turned into like thrashabilly. Jimbo was on upright bass.
I remember it was cool,
dude. It was so sick. I really wish that would have done more than it did. But then Brad left, and he left a void that like Brad was just.
He's a hard void to fill.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
He's a great drummer. He's a great musician.
Yeah, he was doing drums and vocals on the thing, and anybody who came to try out for the position was intimidated. Because I mean, he's a beast. Like,
he is a beast.
Can't deny. The guy is just extremely talented and one of a kind. So
for sure.
Yeah. So once he ended up moving out to L.A.,
I remember that.
We just we couldn't really keep it going, so that kind of fell apart. I've spent some time in Wet the Steel.
I remember Wet the Steel.
Yeah,
days.
with Montez.
Those breakdowns, man.
Yeah, Chap knew how to. Chapman, he knew how to write some riffs.
And Geoff on the vocals.
Yeah, Geoff on vocals. Great lyricist, killer vocals too. Like
Wet the Steel. That was fun.
We had a real fun lineup. Montez was on drums. Like we
It
had
was-
a little bit too much fun.
Those house parties were always great. Remember on California Street?
Forget about it. Every time, anytime with
great
Montez,
times,
you're
man.
just like, I had like a 1 in, like my odds were like 2 out of 3 that I wasn't gonna throw up. But every third time I get together with Montez, he'd just be
Some steep shots over there.
oh yeah, man.
Either
And-
Bacardi Gold or Skull Vodka, and if you took a Montez shot, it was not a normal shot. It was the large shot
it was
glass,
like a double, triple,
like a trouble shot. But yeah,
trouble shot.
troublesome, but a lot of fun.
Yeah. So Wet the Steel was kind of like deathcore, I guess you'd say. You could probably like equate it to like maybe like early Suicide Silence or something along those lines, just generally speaking. A lot of breakdowns and stuff.
It's good shit.
But that ended up running its course, and I went to do other things. I was in the Prowl, which is completely different with RC Tellez and
Shout out to RC. He's a great drummer too.
yeah, and Josh Memphis Drake on vocals, and then Josh Silvius on bass. It was a totally different vibe, and I wasn't really like. They kind of courted me earlier on. I wasn't a big fan of their old band, Dear Noel, because I don't like pop punk.
Okay.
I just never did. But they were a good band for what they did, And they were kind of courting me. They're like, "Hey, man, like we need a rip and lead guitar player for this new project we're doing, and we kind of want to do like a rock and roll thing." I was okay. We were kind of getting into the rock and roll thing with Mega Bangers, and I was like, okay, like let's check this out. Let's see what happens. So I ended up doing a couple of EPs with those guys.
Awesome.
It ran its course. It was trying to go for like I was trying to go for a little bit more like Thin Lizzy, Scorpions, Van Halen kind of end of that thing, and it didn't quite go in the direction that I necessarily wanted to. We kind of went separate ways. Yada typical. I'm trying to just like run through this stuff.
You got a list here.
Yeah, I do got a pretty extensive list. Then during the course of Prowl, Live Humans happened, and that was because Donnie, who I mentioned earlier, he ended up getting a hold of me, and him and Brenda, who is my current girlfriend, we were friends at the time, but Donnie and Brenda started up a project. They're like, hey, we're doing like an acoustic duo thing, and I guess that time that they were getting together, it's like, God, they're like, we wish we could get A-Bear in here, and like this would be perfect. So randomly, I was working as Jimmy John's delivery driver, and I took a call, and it was Brenda Miller. I was like, oh, hey, it's Brenda. So she calls, I pick up the phone, and she's like, hello. I'm like, I know who you are.
That's smooth, Hebert.
Yeah, right.
really,
yeah, right.
really
And she's
smooth.
like, oh, what? It's like, hey, it's Hebert. She's like, oh my god, yeah. So I ended up taking her order and delivered it to her. She's like, hey, me and Donnie are doing an acoustic thing. We're gonna be playing over at Zombie Club in Crown Point. You should totally come out. I was like, yeah, sure. I ain't got nothing going on. What songs you guys doing? So I learned the songs real quick, and we jammed that night.
Cool.
And it ended up kind of turning into a thing. We ended up getting Ryan Buis-Niemeyer on bass, and then my buddy Jay Gore on percussion, and we kind of had like this little like acoustic outfit, and we would do like mostly covers, but it was different because we were kind of doing it all in our own style.
That's cool though.
Yeah, you know, we would kind of like acousticize everything. It was really cool. It was, you know, we were starting to get a little thing going on with it, and then you know, things started kind of going south for Donnie a little bit at that point, and kind of led to you know, where we're at right now. But yeah, so things started going real bad, and it was a real bummer. Yeah, so Live Humans kind of ended up splitting up. We ended up having to ask Donnie to leave. Okay. And then you know, it's obviously rough to talk about. Yeah. But yeah, so at that time after Donnie left, it kind of left a void, because the guy was kind of really hard. It was hard to replace him, you know, because he was just one of a kind, you know. So at that point, I was starting to get offers from Jeff Shepard and Jailhouse Poets. Jeff's from the area, I guess, from a little south of here, but he lives in Nashville now. He's a singer-songwriter. Sort of, I guess you'd call the style Americana.
Americana. Okay.
Yeah.
Not outlaw. But
it's like outlaw country, Americana, alternative country, if you will.
Yeah, it's huge right now.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's way better than the radio stuff.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
Yeah.
I agree. And you've dabbled in the Nashville scene too, right? With him?
Yeah, with him, and then
recordings, like you're on his album.
No, I am not on any of their recordings.
Okay.
So I did Jeff Shepard and Jailhouse Poets, and then through him, I hooked up with Matt Woods and the Natural Disasters. So I was like a hired gun. Yeah. For tours and stuff. So they already had their
professional musician.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. At that point, I was taking on gigs. You know, just filling in and touring and stuff. Awesome. And yeah, but Jeff ended up settling down in Nashville, and obviously you don't need a band of dudes that live in Indiana if you're in Nashville. You just go pick a band up off the street, you know. So.
What's your opinion on the Nashville scene? Was it a lot of fun?
It was fun. Well, the thing about Nashville is that in Nashville, it's whatever. Okay, you're a band from Nashville. Who cares? But when you tour and you're in different cities and you tell them you're from Nashville, it's like
a big deal.
It's a big deal. Everyone's like, oh man, this band's from Nashville. But in Nashville, like, nobody cares.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, the Nashville scene is, I like to go there. I partied there a few times, but it's the live music feel is awesome. You know, like absolutely. I'm not the biggest country dude by any means. So I get my full dose, and then I'll withdraw from it for the entire next year, and then I'll go back again and get it, and it's cool and it's fun. But I think I'm just more of a city slicker. You know, like I like my early country. You know, your Johnny Cash, your Elvis, George Jones. Like, I'm not knocking it. By any means, but there's something special happening there for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the same boat. You know, your Waylon Jennings.
Yeah.
And Willie Nelson and all that stuff. You know, that stuff's great. And for me, doing all these different styles, I would kind of get pegged as just a metal guy. And obviously we spent the first half of the show just talking about metal. But, you know, I love all kinds of music. And at that point, like, my grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, played country standards. So he started off in church, you know, playing church music when he was like 5, like gospel and whatnot. And then, you know, would take on these country gigs. And it was kind of this thing, like, you know, pretty religious family, but, you know, he'd be out in the bars playing the hillbilly music and stuff like that. And, you know, so as the years went by and I started playing, him and I were never able to really like get it together, because at that point I was so
listening to Cannibal Corpse.
Exactly. And you know, we couldn't find that common ground. Jeez. And, you know, it kind of bummed me out that when we were playing, we were trying to get together and play some stuff, and I was reading his chord charts. I'm like, what the heck is this stuff? You know, I know scales and modes and stuff like that, but I didn't really know that side of music, like the traditional style of music, you know? So after he passed, it kind of like, I realized like I got to do this. I got to learn this stuff. I got to like teach myself how to play this stuff that's out of my comfort zone.
Right.
And that point, that was a perfect opportunity for me to not only cope with his death, but to grow as a player.
Yeah, broaden your horizons.
Exactly.
Like you said, step out of that comfort zone. That's
Exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, and that's the only way we grow is when we get out of our comfort zone.
It's very true. It's very true. Yeah, dude. It's been fun having you here. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to bring you back on.
I know, man. There's so much more to the story. Oh boy.
Yep.
I gotta name drop a couple last couple of things. Like let's get it. So more Green Door love. Actually, I do the theme for Pricks on Flicks, which is another show in the network. I did the theme. It's called Monarch. So when you hear that that little piece of music at the beginning,
it's awesome. I remember you did that because you were on Pricks on Flicks probably about a year ago.
Yeah,
that
was right after I did the theme.
Okay, that's an awesome theme song.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I whipped it up at home. Just in the home studio. Just I had not even seen Game of Thrones at that point, but I knew that they were really into it, and I knew that was like the kind of gist. So like medieval, really big.
I think Vince came on, towards the end of one episode, maybe like in the mid-20s, and I think I interrupted one of their shows before too. So we've both like kind of interrupted one another, but we have to get together. And Chris too. I mean, those two. If you love movies and you love shows, I call it like a movie and show discovery podcast. That's totally the place to go. So it's called Pricks on Flicks. So subscribe, and they're a part of the Green Door Network as well. So I think a lot of people might know that follow us, but to other people that are listening around the globe or whatever, check it out.
Kind of tie it all in.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, Live Humans ended up turning into Miles on Foot, which is the current band that I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Current
stuff. What's going on currently?
Yeah. So currently, we're doing Miles on Foot, which kind of grew out of the Live Human thing. We still have Brenda and myself and Jason Gore on percussion. We ended up getting this young drummer named Aaron Grove, who's awesome drummer, great kid. He's an adult, but yeah,
early
I call him a
20s.
kid. Yeah, early 20s. He's in this thrash band called Axios, which rips. They're really cool. Their singer's got that real high Rob Halford type of screams. It's real cool. But he's playing drums with us. Then we got my buddy Joe Villani on guitar, who's from the band Naked Apes. They're kind of like maybe like an indie. They kind of got a little bit more of an indie rock vibe, but they're kind of out doing mostly like cover gigs. But they have their own original material too. We're kind of following suit. So the thing for me is that I've been in all these bands, and I kind of wanted to do a little bit more rock centric stuff. So it was like, okay, let's get a group of people that we could spend a year like doing cover gigs and learn like 40, 50 songs, go out and gig and kind of get real tight together, and then start writing songs.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah. So at this point, like we've covered a lot of different styles, and since now Brenda and I have a baby on the way.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're kind of in writing mode because we're not going to be out gigging,
you'll be dadding.
Yeah, I got to do daddy time, but it's still going to make time to write some tunes.
Cool.
So, we're taking it easy on that front. Brenda and I have been hosting a open mic night over at Zombie Club. No, not Zombie Club.
Silver Bullet, right?
Silver Bullet, yeah. So
Crown
the old
Point?
one, in Crown Point. We are Brendy and the Bear.
I
is
love
the name
it.
of our group.
Yeah, we got to check that out.
Yeah,
man.
so we do that every other Wednesday from 9 to midnight. That's cool. Brenda's probably going to have to sit it out after a while, so I'm just trying to get all the players I can. Got Paul Navarro from Laceration to come through.
Cool.
Even got Vince to come by.
Yeah,
I'm getting
Vince.
together with Vince, and we're going to learn some songs for the next one.
Awesome.
And just trying to get all my musician friends out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Super fun. I like the Silver Bullet.
Yeah, it's great bar.
It is a great. It's just a good old bar. There's nothing cute about it. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely one of those staple. I don't even want to call it a dive bar,
It's
but
not.
it's kind of got the dive
vibe
to it.
Yeah.
But that's my favorite type of bar.
Yeah,
honestly.
but I could take you to a real dive across the street, but we don't, we don't have to go there.
I've been there a couple of times.
That's my first, one of my first shows was there.
Nice.
Shout out to Main Street. I'll just say it.
Main Street, yeah. stepped in on a jam night or two over there randomly.
Yeah,
you know.
a lot of fun. But yeah, man, I'll have to link up with you and check out one of those open mic nights for sure.
That'd be great.
For sure. But yeah, Matt, thanks for coming out, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I got to have you on again. There's some albums too, like when I do like the review revisits, I'd like to bring you on. So maybe like the Mars Volta, Deloused. I know we didn't get into that.
Yeah.
Opeth, Stillwater Park. We didn't get into that.
Yeah, we didn't even get into Opeth.
I mean,
this is
but
my favorite band, but yeah, we only
I'll
had
bring
so
you
much
in
time.
for that for sure, because
Okay.
I noticed when you mentioned that album's like 20 years old.
Yeah.
Today, or not today, but this year. Like, yeah.
Hey,
so there we go.
anytime you want me on, we could do this all day.
Ain't it?
Yeah, man. It's
But
fun.
thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
anything else you'd like to plug, like where to find you, or is there something on Facebook for your new band, or any way to keep up?
Yeah, sure. Well, Miles on Foot has a Facebook page. Bernie and the Bear has a Facebook page. I have my own musical Facebook page. It's Matt Hebert Music, but it's spelled like A-Bear.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. That was my name on Facebook for a while, but they made me actually go with the
real spelling.
The real spelling, and I couldn't get the accent mark over the E, and it became a real nightmare. And we all know how Facebook has no customer service whatsoever.
No.
So but Matt Hebert Music. I'll definitely set you up with the link so everybody
please
can
do. We'll put it in the
check out.
description. And lessons too. You do give lessons.
Yeah, so I teach at Guitar Center in Merrillville. I'm already pretty full up between that and my day job right now.
Okay.
I mean, more students, sure, but I'm working.
You might have to wait till next year.
Yeah, right now. I mean, I'm just happy to have Sundays off. I've been working 7 days a week for a while, so kind of, just grinding.
Right on, dude. Well, thanks for coming. Everyone that's listening, remember to subscribe and share Musically Meditated Podcast. We'll bring Matt back on and dive into some old school albums and keep up with him, for future upcoming jam nights or whatever band that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
But thanks again, dude. Everybody have a good day. Adios.
I'm musically meditated.
That's right. I'm musically meditated. That's right. I'm musically meditated.
Producer my ass over there.